You're watching TVC Breakfast. Nigeria and the island of Jersey, United States, have signed the agreement for the repatriation of looted assets.
The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abacha Loot, last week said the Federal Executive Council had given approval for the asset-sharing tripartite agreement between the three nations to the tune of $321 million, which includes James Ibori's assets.
The latest repatriation of the Abacha Loot will go into infrastructure development. Joining us now is Akin Fatunke, CEO, Chronicler and Associates. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Veronica. Nice to be here.
All right.
Nice to see you.
And via Skype, we have David Ugolo, Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice, joining us as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'll start with you, Reverend Ugolo. Quickly, you have been monitoring this looted funds over time now because Nigerians are concerned about utilization. Would you say categorically that the funds recovered so far have been properly utilized?
Well, the answer will be that yes, but with some issues around the utilizations. We're coming from a point in 2004 where money was recovered, the first Abacha, what we refer to the Abacha 1. The money was mismanaged and project government claim as at that point in time the money was used for. We couldn't trace some of those projects. And that experience informed the stakeholders. And when I refer to the stakeholder this time around, and the Switzerland government, the Nigerian government, when they were negotiating the Abacha through, that lessons were taken into consideration. And the role of civil society was properly put in perspective. And I can say with facts, with evidence that yes, there is a huge improvement as to the return money in Abacha through is going to the purpose that it was meant for and as it was agreed for in the Abacha through. Are there issues in the disbursement of the social and the cash transfer? Yes, there are issues. Those issues have been addressed by the institutional framework put in place, the redress mechanism where when cases of petty bribery involving NCTO officials are also bring to justice. But in overall, I can say that the government have demonstrated high level of transparency and accountability in the utilization of the Abacha 2. And so what are the lessons that we can take from there to the Abacha 3, now that the government is investing the Abacha 3 in infrastructure? Also, one of the key elements that is coming out from the MOU, we haven't signed the MOU yet, unlike the Abacha 2, that's one missing link that we are also going to be raising concern, is the content of the MOU signed by the three governments.
All right. Reverend Ugolo, let me put you on hold a little bit. I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Akin to make his contribution on this. Now, the issue of utilization is what Nigerians are more concerned with from the comments we have heard from a lot of people. Now, some of the contracts awarded within the country at different times, some of them are not even, they don't cost as much as Abacha 1, 2, 3, or 4. What kind of impact would you like to see with the utilization of this fund?
The Procurement Act clearly indicates that we should have a procurement council which should superintend on ensuring whether it is $1, whether it's $20, whether it's $200 million, that is transparent and that everything that should be done in terms of ensuring accountability, integrity, and ethics in delivering projects are done. We don't have that in place. To that extent, I do not have confidence that we are getting the better side of the stick. Secondly, the amount of money declared has been episodic. From May 2012, retired General Obasanjo as president said he had a deal with the Abacha family to return 1.2 billion loot.
2002, you mean?
2002.
Okay.
In 2013, Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala came out clearly and said we've recovered $149 million from this same Staten Island. In 2015, or thereabouts, 2014 really, Mr. Kunjewela came back and said $2 billion of assets and 485 million physical cash had been recovered, and nebulously said it's been used for infrastructure. Well, okay, we'll get back to that. As at the time, Mrs. Nenadi Usman, who was the Minister of Finance in 2007 or thereabout, she was talking about the fact that $2.5 billion. All
right.
Leschen came back and said 722 billion. Switzerland.
So you have challenge with the consistency in figures and all of that.
Why, as an accountant, will I not know what was stolen from my purse?
All right.
The budget has a line that says under recoveries. It's not been put in there.
Now.
Okay.
We have to leave the conversation here now. Akin Fatunke, thank you for your time. Reverend Ogolo, thank you for speaking with us as well.
You're watching TVC Breakfast. Nigeria and the island of Jersey, as well as the United States, have signed the agreement for the repatriation of looted assets.
Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, last week said the Federal Executive Council had given approval for the asset-sharing tripartite agreement between the three nations to the tune of $321 million, which includes James Ibori's assets.
The latest repatriation of the Abacha Loot will go into infrastructure development. Joining us now is Akin Fatunke, CEO, chronicler as an associate. Thank you for having us join us right now.
Thank you very much, Mike. Veronique, how are you doing?
Very well,
it's all right.
you.
And then we have also on Skype David Ugola, Executive Director, African Network for Environmental and Economic Justice, joining us from Benin. Reverend Ugola, it's good to have you join us this morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, let me start with you, Reverend Ugola. You have been following the Abacha Loot all the while, all the tranches that have been returned into the country and the utilization of it. This time around, the one Nigeria is expecting now will not be put into the CCT, the conditional cash transfer, and the transfer to the poorest of the poor, like the others have been. Why is that?
First, every return of asset has their own agreement process and different stakeholders. And in this instance, the stakeholders are quite different from the previous Abacha 2. In this Abacha 3 now, we have the United States as a stakeholder, we have Jersey government as a stakeholder, and we obviously believe that has influenced the decision, what has happened. And the Nigerian government have taken absolute leadership, taking lessons from what happened in Abacha 2. And they have presented this project to the Jersey government and US, and those countries agreed without imposing their own desire. So what we have seen is that three major infrastructure, and I'm sure that Nigerians cited about this. As you know, some people also raised questions when money was allocated for the CCT the last time. So it's an opportunity again to see how return asset can also help to take that project to the next level in Nigeria.
All right, if you would hold the thought, Reverend Ugola, let's come back to the studio now. Do you think that the use of this loot for the development of infrastructure is the right way to go as against giving it to the CCT, the poorest of the poor?
Either way, if you give it to the right hand, and the right hand does the right thing, good. Give it to the left hand does the needful, also good. My challenge is the oxymoron, the totally unobtrusive way of communicating what's been recovered and calling it Abacha Loot. Poor Abacha. Virtually every regime still talk about Abacha. Abacha, we are talking about $3 billion in the past 20 years. Starting with retired General Obasanjo, who had said clearly he was going to go into negotiation with the Abacha family, and depending on the support the Abacha family gives, 1.2 billion. Mr. Okonjo-Iweala, in September 2005, came out clearly for the first time and talked about 148 million from Staten Island. The Staten Island that we are still talking about now becomes so unending. The same Mr. Okonjo-Iweala in 2014 now came back and said all what we've just collected is $500 million. Mrs. Nenadi Usman, who was the Minister of Finance in about 2007, clearly indicated that Nigeria had recovered $2 billion in assets and about $725 million in cash, which they, at that time, said has gone into power, steel, education,
yes,
and what have you. Have you seen anything
So
that
are
you say?
So you feel...
In other words, what I'm saying is that you cannot be talking about accounting, talking about loot that is unending in such a way and manner that we should now be applauding government. The accounting system is so porous and so convoluted that the trust that you expect from the ordinary man out there is just not there. Recovery of assets that has been done should not last for more than 10 years in terms of putting it and declaring and communicating it to the public. We are really not seeing those clearly. Liechtenstein talked also about returning $725 million. What then do we believe? Now, the latest one, if it's going to go into infrastructures, I have no problem about it. My problem is why 321? It must as well be 500 million. It might be below.
So you think it's more than that? Or you think...
It could be well more than that if you don't put the proper accounting system.
Okay.
Has the Auditor General's report over the years indicated any loss?
All right. Let's bring in back Reverend Ugolo here. Reverend, now the point there is a lot of Nigerians are beginning to feel that the Abacha Loot is a metaphor to represent looted funds generally, that all may not necessarily be traced to Abacha. What do you say about this? You are closer to how these things work.
Thank you very much, my friend. First, again, we should try as much as possible to avoid speculation. Asset recovery is a very serious business, and it's not just in the country. Decisions are taken about how it goes. It involves different jurisdictions. In this instance, it involved 3 jurisdictions: Nigeria, US, Jersey. And in the asset recovery process, there are standards, there are best practice. And I completely agree that issue of communication need to be strengthened so that people can understand how the process is going. And Nigerian government do have responsibility to communicate very well to the Nigerian people. Otherwise, rumor will take the stage, and that undermines the credibility of the government. And when Abacha is referred to as metaphor, I understand this very clearly. You will also agree with me that Abacha have attained this #1 rule in looting of public treasury, and the visibility it has gained internationally has made people to conclude that Abacha case is a special case for reference. And using it as a reference has also helped again to sustain the fight against grand corruption. And so what Nigerian government have recorded so far with Abacha case is quite very encouraging. However, there are areas for improvement, particularly areas around what are paid to lawyers, what are paid as compensation to the country, the jurisdiction where this money is coming from. That is the thing we will want to be seeing. Our press statement will be issuing out this afternoon. We will be calling on both the tripartite countries that have involved in this agreement to come out very clearly in accordance with the GIFA principle of transparency and accountability. They should tell the world what happened. For instance, the totality of the amount. what went for lawyers, what went for the cost of those countries where the money is coming from. We want to know, the public want to know, so that we know what does it really mean to be embarking on asset recovery process. So those are the things that we're looking forward to see. And obviously, those issues are issues, if not properly handled, can damage the reputation of government, particularly in the context where trust is a scarce commodity.
All right, David Okolo, let's quickly come back to the studio now. So, reacting to what he has said, he's talking about transparency and accountability. Is that what you expect from the government moving forward? Because you have concerns.
I have more than concerns, Veronica. 72 million US dollars was returned by the UK government. And they had withheld $12 million they described as administrative fees. Like he said, how much is being paid to lawyers? How much is going under the table? I also believe I have pursued the Nigerian budget very, very critically. There is a line in the budget that is supposed to take care of under recoveries. I haven't seen anywhere where it's been budgeted that this is what is going to come in for the Abacha, returns and what have you over the years. So a thieving president, and I'm afraid we have really not have such opaqueness in all the presidents that we have seen up till now in terms of the kind of integrity I expect to see. A situation where the president is the minister of petroleum and also the commander-in-chief. So, and all he just does, he doesn't know, we don't know how much we are producing, how much is being smuggled, how much is going under the table. And a president calls the CBN governor, so we are told, and then monies are moved from the vaults of the CBN. Just like that. Do you call that accounting? Do you call that transparency? And we have an Auditor General's office that has been issuing reports over the years, and nothing really has been said to that. So what that leaves me is I'm at a discretion to decide what I'm going to disclose to the public. I'm at a discretion how much of it I'm going to take and use to finance elections. I'm at a discretion to decide what I'm going to take out of that for social intervention. So discretion it should really not be. We must be transparent. It must be audited. It must be communicated. And when you say you are going to use this for infrastructures,
All right.
we must get feedback.
All right. We look forward to that as things go on. Thank you very much, Akin Fatunke, for your insight into this.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, we also thank David Ugolo for joining us from Benin as well. Thank you so much for your insight.